The state of your relationship depends on these two things. And I'm going to show you what these two things are and why you've probably been very oblivious to them and what you can do about it now that I'm going to show you that this is a thing. So, first of all, this is what I call the life chart. This is how all humans go about their life, and you don't even realize it because every millisecond this is happening. We'll start with the most basic. You have your thoughts, which lead to your feelings, which lead to your actions, which lead to your results or your outcomes or your consequences, etc. Use any synonym for any of these words you like. Underneath actions, you also have words. These typically destroy your actions and then just go back to square one. Keep that in mind. Behind your thoughts are your interpretations. This is where your thoughts come from your interpretations. And then behind your interpretations, you have your paradigms or your belief systems. Now, your belief systems are very responsible for a lot of how you feel and a lot of how you think and a lot of your subsequent actions. So if you ever want to save and fix your relationship, you need to start changing this, but in order to change this, you still need to actually change this. You need to change your paradigms, your belief systems, because this is responsible for so much destructive habits. But there's a lot of things that go on behind this. What creates your belief systems in the first place? Well, a lot of the time, it happens during childhood and it happens in your environment. You see, there's any type of event happen, a belief spawns and an interpretation on that belief spawns and the event, and then it's a spiral and it keeps on looping back all the time. And the event comes from the environment. Interestingly enough, you actually have a fair amount of control over this. Now, or you can modify this over time. Now, the thing about the whole events, beliefs, interpretations, thoughts, etc., there is something called the psychoneuro. That's the word we're going with because I can't remember the long word. And the psychoneuro basically means like the mental and the physical. That's what it means, mental and physical. Because you can't necessarily have mental without the physical. This is why we have to eat food. This is why the brain is a brain, because everything that goes on inside the brain, it's all mental and visual and imaginative, but it still depends on the physical brain to function. So that's why there's something called the psychoneuro, the mental physical. Now, in my video that I made on TikTok, I said there are two things that the state of your relationship depend on. And the first thing that it depends on is your subconscious evaluation system. And that basically means it's a scale system. So here's some scales. And all it boils down to is choice. You're going to make a choice to the left or you're going to make a choice to the right. Sometimes you might have a middle scale where it's in the middle, but the main idea is normally it's a choice. And there is this book here, I'll show you. The Value of Others, Chapter 1 by Orion Taraban, talks about the subconscious evaluation system within us humans. And this subconscious evaluation system, it's a language of the subconscious. It is responsible for making a lot of these decisions. But ultimately, the easiest way I put this is pain versus pain. Because in order for someone to make a decision, one pain must become greater than another. Sure, you could say that one benefit must become greater than another, but really people move away from pain. They do move towards pleasure, but you're more likely to run away from a psychopath with a knife trying to kill you than you are running towards a bag full of $1 million. So pain is a great motivator. Pain is actually, it's responsible for so many decision choices. And your subconscious evaluation system and the subconscious evaluation system within your partner you are both trying to weigh the decisions, the pros and the cons. If you're entering into a relationship, if you're staying in a relationship, there's so many benefits and there's so many cons to that. Normally what happens in a marriage is if this one spouse wants to leave, that means that the pain of staying in the relationship became greater than the pain of leaving. And so leaving was the best choice. Sure, there was cons to it, but there was probably more benefits to leaving because the pain of being in the relationship was too great. And if this happens to you, it is actually your fault. And the reason I say it's your fault, don't freak out, is because you have something called an internal locus of control. This means that whatever you do in life, you must always focus whatever is in your control. Your partner leaving, that's a result of your internal locus gone whack. Your internal locus entails your belief systems, your interpretations, your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions. You can't control the consequences necessarily, but the fruit that does spawn does tend to come about because of these things that are in your control. And if your partner is leaving you in the marriage, it's because these are all fucked up. That's why your spouse leaves you in the marriage. These are all fucked up. Or it's just too painful. It's just too painful for the spouse to deal with. So, what causes these to get fucked up? Actually, what causes this? This is point number 2. It's your hypnotic rhythm. Now, I don't have the physical copy on me, but there's a book called Outwitting the Devil, written by Napoleon Hill, and he's the guy who wrote Think and Grow Rich. And in his book, there is the subject of hypnotic rhythm. And the principle is very simple. It basically means, the small things you do add up significantly over time. And there's a lot of different principles that have a very similar meaning. Death by 1,000 cuts, or brick by brick. But hypnotic rhythm, it's very peculiar to what we're talking about. Because what it means is basically you are what you consume. You are what you eat. You've heard that saying, you are what you eat. And what you are what you eat basically means that that's it. It's another connection to the psychoneuro. The psychoneuro. You are what you consume. Now, what are you though? What are you? Now, you're probably looking at this, right? You are a conscious entity. This is what you actually are. Your body, your thoughts, etc. Mainly your body. Your body is a physical vessel in which you occupy. You are like a spirit thing. You are like a soul thing. You are not your body. You are a conscious entity, an awareness, occupying a vessel. That's what you actually are. And underneath your conscious awareness, the brain likes to kind of addict itself to different things. You have kind of like, if anyone asks you who you are, there are typically 2 answers for this. The first answer is your conscious awareness, but most people don't typically answer that. The one people normally answer is your character. That's who you are. And right now, you are probably entering into a state of being from that character. You could be any type of character. You could be a pirate on a ship. You could be John Wayne. You could be a musician, for all I know. But the thing is, your brain attaches itself to identity. You identify with the character, and therefore your character is who you are. I am XYZ. And what happens is the character, the thing that you're identifying yourself, actually comes from a frame. This is a story. Typically, these stories or these frames, they come often from the environment or events. And the frame is like, it's basically a belief system, but it's not exactly your own, I suppose. A frame is, like, these two are very similar. A frame is something that you enter into and you're kind of stuck in it. It's like if you're a basketball player or a soccer player or who knows what, you are in the frame of that game. You're not playing cricket in that game. You're not playing Postman Pat in the context of baseball. Yeah, let's go with baseball, right? Baseball. You're not playing the role of a helicopter pilot and the rules, etc., when you are going by the rules or the frame of the game of baseball, see? And so when you are in the game or the rules of baseball, that's when your belief systems are under that. Oh, I believe that X will work on Y if I do this, etc. And these frames are quite large, actually. These frames are quite large. So it's typically frames and belief systems are probably the same. I'll be looking into this myself because just thinking about it is very interesting to me. But these are dangerous. These are very dangerous because it influences your belief systems. If you consume, now this is the part about hypnotic rhythm. You are what you consume. If you are consuming and sitting in the frames of your spouse is a narcissist, or she's a narcissist, she's an avoidant anxious attachment style, that's a huge one. If you are consuming content that talks about narcissism, anxious attachment styles, avoidant attachment styles, bipolar, borderline personality disorder, etc., any other type of weird thing, you're going to be sitting in that frame of that game, and then your whole belief system will determine the rest of your psychoneuroconnection, your feelings, your thoughts, your actions. And the funny thing is, when we say you are what you consume, consumption is an action. And there's something called the law of reversibility. Law of reversibility. And when I discovered this was really cool. Because yes, all of this goes in that direction, but at the same time, all this goes in this direction as well. Like that. And when you consume things, it goes all the way back to this. Your actions go all the way over here. If you've heard, there is a quote by Brian Tracy that I love. It helps me picture this a lot easier. If you act unintelligently, you are unintelligent. But what if you change the word unintelligent? If you act intelligently, then you are intelligent. And the funny thing is, you can only enter one state of being at a time. Let me describe what I mean by that. Pedestrian versus car or driver. Pedestrian versus driver. When you are driving an automobile, you are not a pedestrian. Likewise, if you are a pedestrian, you're not a driver. You're not in that state of being. If you're kayaking, you're not helicopter piloting. If you are bungee jumping, you're not being a trash man at the same time. You can only ever enter one state of being. And so that's fascinating. So you can't be unintelligent and intelligent at the same time. But what this means is you can fix this. You can fix this. And this is something that I've personally been working towards for a very long time. And it all boils down to this. And choice plays a huge significant role in all of this. All of this is just about a choice. Choice depends on a lot of emotions, feelings. I think choice typically sits more in this area, but it does affect everything else. If you want let's say you're in a marriage and you want your spouse to stay or reconcile or get back together, etc., then very logically, the pain of being away from you needs to be greater than the pain of being with you. It is really that simple. And there are like factors that you need to tick off like a checkbox, like thousands of these factors. There's endless amounts of factors that need to be checked off. And the more factors that you have checked off in the favor of being with you, if you want to be in a relationship, then the pain of being with you is going to be much less than the pain of being away from you. And how can we help with these factors being in our favor? How can we check these off as fast as possible and as easily as possible? Well, your hypnotic rhythm. It's basically another word for your habits. If you've ever read the book called Atomic Habits by James Clear, he talks about changing your identity first, which will then change the rest of this. But likewise, if you change this, that will also go about changing your identity. So, because that's what a habit is. Habits typically sit in this area, but they also sit in the thought process as well. So you want to avoid looking at anxious attachment styles and avoidant attachment styles, even just for research purposes. If you don't know anything, fine, have a look at it, but it's very dangerous because you'll be sucked into the frame and then you're going to believe that your partner is an avoidant attachment style when you are probably the one who's an avoidant attachment style. I myself exhibit both narcissistic, avoidant, and anxious, and bipolar. I exhibit everything. If you want to believe something, you will see that thing. If you want to see Jesus on a piece of toast, you will. And so basically, your hypnotic rhythm, you need to consume things that are only in your favor, things that you truly believe in. You have to create your own frame. You have to create your own. Or you create the frame that is more likely to get you the result and discover the real truth. And the best way we can do this is providing emotional safety. Emotional safety. This is very important. Most dating and relationship coaches do not talk about this, but it's funnily a very important one. Emotional safety will help you get more access into the areas that you want with your partner. Being curious and empathetic typically are the best ways to entice emotional safety. But yeah, if you want your results to change, you don't have any control of this. This is part of your external locus. Your results, you can't necessarily change those, especially by brute force. These are like a fruit. You reap what you sow. Those come about later in time. If you're facing a very detrimental situation in your relationship, etc., that's because over time, that fruit grew in that way. You grew it. It didn't happen overnight. Spouse leaves you, oh my God. No, spouse never left you. She decided to leave you, 3-6 months ago. And that still was a fruit from the labor that you put in. So we need to change your labor completely. Change your identity in order to change your actions in order to change your identity, and the rest of these things follow along. because of a feedback loop. So, I learned something new there.